The Albaran, Covarrubias, and Valdez families. 7 people, including 3 children, were killed execution-style during that home invasion. 2 men were arrested and convicted.
On June 1, 2006, Jasmine Albaran was begging her mother, Kim Fisher, to let her visit her father. The parents had been divorced, and Jasmine's life had been split in 2. She really wanted to spend time with her father and his relatives, but Kim was firm on her decision that day. She wanted her daughter nowhere near that house that day. Little did she know, she was saving her daughter's life. That night, all 7 people in the household were killed in cold blood, and at first, no one could understand why. Now, almost 2 decades later, we know more about it, but it remains one of the most heartbreaking cases in history, and today, we've gathered all the dark details behind it. The Albaran family was a close-knit, multi-generational household living together at 560 North Hamilton Avenue in Indianapolis. At the center of the family were Emma Valdez, 46, and her husband, Alberto Covarrubias, 56, who worked hard to provide a stable and loving environment for their children and grandchildren. Emma was described as a dedicated mother and grandmother who brought the family together, while Alberto served as a steady presence in the household. Their blended family included Emma's children from a previous relationship, Flora Albaran, 22, and Magno Albaran, 29, along with the couple's 2 young sons, Alberto Jr., 11, and David Wright. Flora's son, Luis, just 5 years old, was the youngest member of the household. The family was known in their community as friendly and connected, participating in local events and fostering relationships with neighbors. The children attended nearby schools, and their home was often a hub for family gatherings and celebrations. Their Hispanic heritage influenced their lives, bringing cultural traditions and customs into their home, which enriched their family bond. Despite life's challenges, they worked hard to ensure their children had opportunities for a brighter future. Education and resilience were key values that Emma and Alberto instilled in their children. The couple took the tough hand life dealt them and somehow turned it all around. They always had the doors of their home open to anyone who wanted to join them. They didn't realize that one day, someone would walk into their home and make sure no one left. Desmond Turner, a small-time criminal, convinced himself that a large amount of money or drugs was hidden inside a safe in a house on Hamilton Avenue. This belief came from rumors circulating in the local drug scene where Turner was involved. Even though no one really knew the basis of it, they all believed it to be true. Hoping for a quick and easy score, he recruited James Stewart to help with the robbery, believing backup would give them the confidence and strength to carry it out smoothly. Turner's familiarity with the neighborhood may have influenced his choice. He seemed to have some prior knowledge of the family or their home, whether through his personal connections or secondhand information. It's possible someone he trusted misled him on purpose, deliberately pointing him toward this home. Some believe Turner might have pieced together unrelated details, misinterpreting them and convincing himself it was a high-reward target. Driven by desperation, Turner saw this as a chance to escape his struggles. Living a life on the edge with a history of small-scale criminal activity, he was willing to gamble for what he thought would be a significant payoff. For Stewart, agreeing to join the plan might have stemmed from loyalty to Turner, pressure to take part, or his own hopes of benefiting from the heist. Despite their preparation, Turner's plan relied on flawed assumptions and false information. The choice to target this specific home, based on rumors rather than verified facts, turned what could have been a non-violent robbery into something far worse. Turner's desperation and misguided judgment brought severe consequences, all because of his fixation on striking what he thought was a major jackpot. In the end, the plan, fueled by misinformed ambition, spiraled far beyond what either Turner or Stewart could have anticipated. By the way, I post true crime and new cases here every day, so if that sounds like your kind of thing, please consider subscribing. It helps a lot. The initial plan set by Desmond Turner and James Stewart was clear and straightforward. Carry out a robbery, not a murder. Their objective wasn't to hurt anyone, but to steal whatever they could find, particularly focusing on a safe they believed held cash or valuables. They had no intention of leaving behind any witnesses or creating a violent scene. All they wanted was to get in, get the valuables, and get out quickly before anyone noticed they were there. The house at 560 North Hamilton Avenue was the target. Their primary concern was getting in and out without drawing attention, but they were underprepared for the series of events that would unfold. Turner and Stewart anticipated that the house would be empty or that anyone present would be an easy target to overpower quickly. They may have thought that the family would be away, or at least off guard, allowing them to carry out the robbery without interference. But once they entered the home, the unexpected happened. Within moments of being inside, their plans started to unravel. The presence of others in the home, combined with a quick confrontation, immediately changed the dynamic from one of a typical robbery to something much more complicated and dangerous. What had seemed like an opportunity to score big with minimal risk soon spiraled into something much darker. As they started to search the house for the safe, the situation quickly became more intense. The unexpected return of Magno Albaran turned the entire plan upside down. Magno had just come back home when he found two strangers inside. Unlike what Turner and Stewart had probably expected, he was armed. He felt an immediate need to protect his family, and in a split second, he drew his weapon. This shift caught the robbers by surprise. Up until that point, things seemed easy. Now, they faced an armed threat that forced them into a corner. In a tense and unpredictable moment, Stewart acted on instinct, shooting Magno in defense of himself and his accomplice. After Magno fell, Turner and Stewart's options dwindled rapidly. With the one man in the house now dead, the fear of being caught or identified was at the top of their list of concerns. It's at this point that the robbery transformed into something far worse. Instead of fleeing or retreating, Turner likely made a decision based on panic. He might have realized that leaving any witnesses alive could eventually lead to their capture. Fearing the consequences of leaving the scene and not fully understanding the extent of the consequences of what they had already done. Methodically, Desmond Turner moved through the house, targeting each family member he came across with a chilling sense of purpose. His actions unfolded without hesitation. He was trying to eliminate any potential threats in his path. Flora Albaran, Magno's sister and a young mother, was one of the first to encounter Turner. The young woman, who was just trying to care for her family, was instantly confronted with the brutality of the situation. Turner didn't show her any mercy. Her life was taken quickly as Turner continued his relentless and cold execution of his plan, each family member becoming another victim in the nightmare that had unfolded. Next, Emma Valdez, the Albaran family's mother, and her husband, Alberto Covarrubias, tried desperately to protect their loved ones. Both of them understood that something horrific had taken place and knew they had to act fast to stop it. They made an attempt to fight back or intervene. They wanted to protect their family at all costs, but their efforts were futile. Despite their bravery in the face of the overwhelming violence, they were quickly overpowered. The violence Turner brought with him was overwhelming and swift, leaving no time for the family to defend themselves or make a plan. Every movement was executed with precision, marking the house with blood in a matter of minutes. Turner, unable to see any way out now that the family members were no longer a potential source of resistance, continued to move with a sense of finality. There was no attempt to make the scene anything less than what it was, an indiscriminate, cold-blooded killing spree. It was clear that no one would survive this house on Hamilton Avenue that day, as Turner carried out each execution with brutal efficiency, securing the tragic fate of those who tried to fight back. Most devastating of all was Desmond Turner's decision to eliminate even the youngest members of the family, leaving no one alive. Alberto Jr., only 11 years old, David, who was 8, and little Luis, just 5, had no chance against Turner's cold determination. The innocence and vulnerability of the children made them helpless in the face of the overwhelming violence. What might have been a robbery that spiraled out of control quickly devolved into a mass murder, marking the house with unspeakable tragedy. Turner's ruthless actions stripped the Albaran family of their future, severing the lives of 7 people in one shocking, unforgiving moment. The family members understood the violence happening around them, unable to escape it. They were all shot executioner style, so they saw their assailant up close and knew what was happening. This massacre was not driven by pure hatred, but by a cold, calculating desire to cover his tracks, no matter the cost. The loss of control over the situation, paired with his unwavering decision to keep killing, ensured that the entire household would never walk out alive. The spree lasted only a few minutes, but its impact was immeasurable. Turner and Stewart destroyed an entire family. After carrying out the brutal murders, Desmond Turner and James Stewart attempted to flee the crime scene as quickly as possible. Their primary goal at this point was to escape without leaving any trace that could be used to identify them or connect them to the massacre. That's the main reason they even went through with it in the first place. The 2 men made their way out of the house, likely in a hurried panic, still reeling from the violent acts they had just committed. In the chaos that followed, the robbers didn't take the time to cover their tracks, but they made sure to leave the area as quickly as possible. They left the Hamilton Avenue house without further interaction with the outside world, making their way to their vehicle to drive away and go into hiding. Turner and Stewart had already planned their escape, knowing they needed to lay low for a while. In the days following the killings, they scattered and kept a low profile, hoping the police would focus on other possible suspects rather than immediately drawing connections to them. However, the killers were eventually tracked down thanks to a combination of physical evidence, witness testimonies, and diligent investigative work. The investigation into the massacre was initially slow, given the lack of obvious clues at the crime scene. As the bodies were discovered and autopsies revealed the brutal nature of the killings, the police began looking for potential links to local criminals. Turner, with his criminal background and prior connections to the neighborhood, became a person of interest for the authorities. His involvement in local drug circles, combined with his known associations, brought him under suspicion. The breakthrough came when authorities pieced together information from multiple sources. Witnesses who had seen the 2 men near the crime scene before and after the murders helped put their identities together. Additionally, physical evidence, including fingerprints or DNA, was found at the scene, pointing investigators directly to Turner and Stewart. When they matched this information with witness statements, they were able to link both men to the crime and issue warrants for their arrest. Eventually, Turner and Stewart were found and taken into custody. Their arrest followed an intense manhunt, and once in custody, both men confessed to the killings. But that was just the beginning. The aftermath of the Hamilton Avenue massacre brought not only grief and fear to the local community, but also the legal proceedings that followed, which exposed both the shocking nature of the crime and the strategies used by both the prosecution and defense. Desmond Turner, 31, and James Stewart, 33, faced a variety of charges related to the murder of 7 people, including charges of murder, confinement for each of the victims, robbery, and burglary. As the 2 men stood accused of an extraordinarily violent and deliberate series of killings, the legal landscape was marred by a long and contentious trial, the handling of witness testimonies, and both men's claims of innocence. Turner was considered the mastermind behind the killings, both in terms of planning and execution. He faced nearly 24 charges, ranging from murder to robbery. His trial began in October 2008, when the Marion County prosecutors presented their case. The prosecution's approach was methodical, laying out the robbery plot that led to the murders. Witness testimonies from those who had seen Turner and Stewart before and after the killings painted a clear picture of the men's movements, directly implicating them. According to the state's case, Turner and Stewart broke into the home at 560 North Hamilton Avenue with the intention of robbing the residents in search of a rumored stash of cocaine and money. The horrific events that followed were not spurred by any direct threat to Turner or Stewart. Rather, they resulted from their decision to eliminate anyone who might recognize them or who could pose a risk to their escape. On November 20th, 2008, Desmond Turner was found guilty on all charges. He was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Throughout the trial, Turner maintained his innocence. He argued that he was merely in the wrong place at the wrong time and was unfairly implicated in the deaths. This, however, did little to sway the jury or the judge, who had ample evidence to confirm Turner's role in the killings. One crucial aspect of Turner's trial was the fact that he faced the possibility of the death penalty just weeks before his trial began, an option that was ultimately dismissed in exchange for Turner waiving his right to a jury trial. Turner chose to have a judge rule on his guilt rather than risk the uncertainties of a jury trial. This move has since drawn criticism, with some questioning whether he made the choice because he feared a jury's verdict, which could have been more unpredictable. One of the significant challenges faced by the state in prosecuting Turner was the lack of physical evidence directly linking him to the crime scene. While prosecutors could piece together the events through witness statements and circumstantial evidence, they struggled to find concrete DNA or other physical proof tying Turner directly to the murders. This gap in the physical evidence provided Turner's attorneys with the grounds to challenge the prosecution's case, but it was not enough to sway the judge's decision. To counter the lack of physical evidence, prosecutors emphasized the witness testimonies, which painted a vivid picture of Turner and Stewart's actions before, during, and after the crime. Several witnesses had seen them near the house and could describe their actions, providing essential details that helped bring clarity to the robbery and the subsequent murders. James Stewart's trial was set to begin after Turner's, with jury selection scheduled. Unlike Turner, Stewart opted to have his case heard by a jury of 12 plus 4 alternates. Stewart's defense strategy differed significantly from Turner's. While Turner had pleaded guilty to his role in the murders, Stewart stuck firmly to his claim of innocence, opting instead to challenge the evidence against him and present a defense based on an alibi. His attorney, Richard Bucheri, argued that Stewart was not present at the scene on the night of the murders and sought to cast doubt on the reliability of the testimony that connected Stewart to the crime. This alibi defense placed the focus of Stewart's legal fight on trying to discredit the state's witnesses. Although Stewart had an opportunity to provide his defense, the evidence against him remained strong. Prosecutors believed that Stewart's handgun was responsible for at least one of the fatal shots, while the rest of the bullets came from Turner's assault rifle. Despite the overwhelming nature of the evidence, Stewart's defense attorneys hoped to manipulate the legal process by throwing doubt on the testimonies and presenting an alternative narrative to the crime. Turner's defense attorneys tried to exploit a long-standing neighborhood feud to inject reasonable doubt into the case. Specifically, they pointed to a feud involving Valdez's son, Mario Albaran, who had no direct involvement in the incident but had been caught up in a dispute with another local family. Turner's lawyers claimed that the Albaran family's ongoing problems with local residents could have led to a mistaken accusation and false witness testimonies. However, Judge Robert Altus dismissed these theories, pointing out that the defense had failed to provide a reasonable alternative theory of innocence. This weakened the defense's argument, making it clear to the judge that the actions and motivations behind the murders were not as ambiguous as Turner's lawyers tried to portray. One of the more complex aspects of the legal proceedings was the decision to hold separate trials for Turner and Stewart. This decision stemmed from the fact that both defendants had different roles in the crime, yet witness statements implicated them both. In cases where multiple defendants are involved, there is always the challenge of handling shared evidence in a way that does not unfairly implicate one defendant based on the actions of another. Because of this, the judge decided it would be best to hold the trials separately. This also allowed Turner to waive his right to a jury trial in exchange for prosecutors not seeking the death penalty, while Stewart's trial proceeded with a jury of 12. Turner, hoping to avoid the worst punishment, went with a judge who might be more inclined to consider his case without the bias of a jury's emotions. Stewart, however, opted for the uncertainty of a jury trial, where his fate would be in the hands of the people rather than a judge. 7-year-old Jasmine Albaran's life was forever altered. She had repeatedly begged her mother to allow her to visit her father, Magno Albaran, that fateful night, but Jasmine was told she couldn't go. It was a decision that unknowingly saved her life. The following morning, her mother, Kim Fisher, received a phone call informing her of a horrific event at the home of Jasmine's father and his family. At that address, the worst mass killing in Indianapolis's history had taken place, with 7 people, including Jasmine's father and several close relatives, gunned down by 2 men who had been told of a rumored stash of money. Kim rushed to inform Jasmine, shattering her daughter's world. Jasmine, now an adult, said, "I went from this happy, carefree kid to someone I didn't even know." The sudden, brutal loss of almost her entire family left Jasmine in shock, and she struggled to understand why the massacre had occurred. The trauma not only changed her emotional state, but her entire outlook on life. The grief didn't cease with the conviction of the killers. Jasmine's family was left to pick up the pieces of their shattered lives. For over a year, Jasmine's mother, Kim Fisher, kept her daughter confined within the walls of their home, unable to find the will to leave. Over time, with the help of therapy and medication, the pain began to subside, though it would never be fully gone. Kim and Jasmine leaned on their faith to help navigate the monumental grief. Jasmine learned that her father and his family would have wanted her to forgive and move on, rather than become consumed by the pain and anger from their violent deaths. "I don't live with evil in my heart," Jasmine said, as she reflected on her ability to forgive the men responsible. On August 23, 2008, just over 2 years after the killings, the house was set on fire in an arson attack. The deliberate act of destruction was likely meant to erase the physical reminder of the massacre that had shocked the entire community. The house was left to burn, with its walls no longer a home, but instead a shell of a horrific past. Ultimately, the house was demolished on July 16, 2010. The decision to destroy it was part of the effort to remove the last remnants of the traumatic event. What had been a place of family gatherings and memories was reduced to rubble, offering no trace of its violent past. But something this dark can't really be fully erased. It happened, but it makes you wonder, was there anything they could have done to have this day turn out any differently? We would love to know your thoughts in the comment section. If you like the way we create these videos and you want to help bring more cases like this to light, hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives. Thank you once again for watching.